from Instagram to see what's trending in your area.
From the station that's on your side, this is News 12, first at 4.
Hallways and classrooms are now empty at one school in Aiken County, with 2/3 of the school now under quarantine. Now the whole school is virtual. Horse Creek Academy has sent all of their students home. 70 have tested positive, and 700 students are in isolation. They had only been in school for 2 weeks before switching to online learning. Our Sloan O'Cone is live outside of Horse Creek Academy. Sloan, what did staff at the school say about the cases? Well, the principal of Horse Creek Academy says immediately since the beginning of the school year, COVID cases started coming in every minute. Now, 700 students quarantining, and not enough teachers to staff the school. Going virtual the next 4 days is their only option. Students from pre-K4 all the way to the 10th grade have reported positive COVID cases. Over 70 positive cases in 3 weeks. To put that in perspective, last year the school only saw 49 positive cases for the whole year. Unable to mandate masks in classrooms that are too small to socially distance, their main mitigation strategies were to disinfect and keep students in pods of classrooms. Tonight they will have a board meeting to talk about more COVID safety guidelines, the number of cases they have, and how exactly to move forward. As of right now, going virtual is their only option.
When we have this many students quarantined, this many positive cases, and we're seeing real life HCA dads pass away from this disease, it's serious. And so we have to do everything in our power to make sure we're taking care of our students and their families.
And coming up at 6 o'clock, I'm working on a story about how South Carolina state mandates are making it difficult for schools to respond to situations like these. Thanks so much, Sloan, for that live update. We're going to have much more news ahead, but Airbnb is pledging to house 20,000 Afghan refugees. The company CEO made the announcement this morning. The program would begin immediately and pay for all stays as well as donors to the refugee fund. The CEO has said the displacement of refugees is one of the biggest humanitarian crises of our lifetimes. He has not said how long refugees would be housed or how long they would pay for their stays. Well, 20 ash receptacles and 400 pocket ashtrays. That's what the local group Keep Augusta Beautiful was able to purchase through a grant. They received $15,000 from Keep America Beautiful to go towards cigarette litter prevention. The group says cigarette butts are the most common littered item, and they want to help put an end to that with the community's help.
It screams accountability. It screams accountability, and it shows that we are growing and we are touching more than just our residents. We're touching our businesses now as well, so that everybody can take some accountability in how we treat our city here.
If you want a free pocket ashtray, you can get one at the Augusta Municipal Building. As for the receptacles, businesses can apply for one online on Keep Augusta Beautiful's website. As COVID-19 cases continue to rise across the U.S., many health experts agree there's no way to tell how long this latest surge will last. But the new question is, how long will COVID be around? We're diving into the timeline next.
Hi, I'm Human today, and we are looking at more rain chances for tomorrow, even better rain chances for your day on Wednesday. We'll talk about that coming up after a short break as we head through the weekend. Zayna?
Experts think that COVID will likely be around for a while, even if we get control over the surge of cases. Mandy Gaither has some simple steps that health officials say to learn to live with the virus.
The virus that causes COVID-19 isn't going anywhere anytime soon. With the recent full FDA approval of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine, vaccinations are on the rise.
If we can get through this winter and get really the overwhelming majority of the 90 million people who have not been vaccinated, I hope we can start to get some good control in the spring of 2022.
Some U.S. health experts believe the virus will end up being seasonal, like a cold or flu, and we must learn to coexist with the coronavirus.
It changes, just like the weather does. There may be times you need to pull out an umbrella. There's times that you don't go inside certain places.
The first thing experts say we need to do, get as many people as possible vaccinated and mask up. They say the Delta variant has been shown to exist in the nose and upper throat of those infected, vaccinated or not, in almost equal amounts. As school mask debates continue, some parts of the country are already struggling with quarantines and temporary closures as infections spread. In classrooms, experts say masks and good ventilation are important to keep schools safe. More rapid tests especially antigen tests. They say those results can be helpful for those who don't have symptoms but want to make sure they're not a silent spreader. And given that the Delta variant spreads more easily, experts say reassess and adjust risk of exposure. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Experts say it's still unclear whether cases are driven by the Delta variant will peak and rapidly fall like they did in the United Kingdom. Our local doctors said they did not think it would be a seasonal issue. Still ahead, life during a pandemic is pretty stressful, but one yoga instructor says she has the answer for you on how to battle the stresses of life. All the pumpkin spice fans will love this. Starbucks is making their seasonal debut today, a day sooner. All the pumpkin spice fans will love this. Starbucks is making their seasonal debut today, a day sooner than last year. The rollout of the fall foods comes after competitors like Dunkin' made their seasonal things earlier too. So if you've been missing out on pumpkin cream cold brew or pumpkin cream cheese muffins, guess what? You're in luck. But I guess if you are going to head to Starbucks, you better get there early because I'm sure a lot of people are excited to hear all of these fall items coming back out sooner than later, Mikkel.
Wow, just in time for the fall, and I know pumpkin cake is one of my favorites, so I do like that.
I haven't tried it, but I want to try it now.
Hey, you should try it. It's very good. All you got.
From the station that's on your side, News 12, First at 4 continues.
COVID numbers are on the rise in our area. We're taking a look at the infections and just how many people are vaccinated. At our local hospitals in total, they have around 285 people hospitalized with COVID. That number comes from AU Health, university, doctors, and the Charlie Norwood VA. There are at least 14 breakthrough cases and no reported cases in kids today. Georgia is finally seeing less cases, a very dramatic drop from the 16,000 we saw yesterday. Today, the state had 5,000 confirmed cases. Richmond County seeing over 1,000 in the past 2 weeks, and Columbia County seeing an increase, hitting 739 cases. South Carolina hitting over 3,000 new cases, and within the past 2 weeks, Aiken County has reported almost 1,300 cases. And when we take a look at vaccinated people in our area, we can see that Georgia has over 4 million people fully vaccinated. 42% of the population has completed their doses. South Carolina reporting that 2 million people are fully vaccinated. 46.7% of the population in South Carolina have completed their doses. With Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine approved for people 16 and up, employers and universities are starting to mandate vaccinations, and more Americans are getting their first shot. Michael George looks at the possibility of herd immunity.
Hospital ICUs in Louisiana are being stretched to the limit with COVID patients like 36-year-old Michael Debrek. His wife Lauren began keeping vigil by his bedside after she recovered from COVID. Neither are vaccinated.
I made the appointment 3 times and canceled it because I was too busy. If I could go back in time, that is the one thing I would change.
Now, with the FDA's full approval of the Pfizer vaccine, persuading holdouts to get a shot could get the country back to some sense of normalcy by spring, according to Dr. Anthony Fauci.
You know, that's going to be up to us. And when I say up to us, I mean it's really how many people get vaccinated, how many people step up and say, you know, we've had enough of this.
Rates of COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths continue to rise nationwide, especially in the South, where vaccination rates are low. Arkansas's governor announced hospitals in his state have run out of ICU beds.
It should emphasize the need to get our vaccinations done.
In Hawaii, hospitals are also filling up, and the state's governor has asked tourists to stay away. Here in New York City, the mayor is urging the Biden administration to accelerate the approval process to vaccinate children from 5 to 11.
Federal government needs to move heaven and earth. This should be the #1 federal priority right now.
Representative Stewart. In Ohio, state legislators are debating whether to make it illegal for employers to mandate any and all vaccines.
Where there's risk, there must be choice. Vaccinations have been recognized as the single most significant public health achievement over the past century.
Ohio's Republican governor opposes the legislation. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
In the past week, more than 130,000 COVID cases were reported in the U.S. More news ahead, but first, let's get another. Evacuations are continuing in Afghanistan with 21,000 people leaving in the past 24 hours. President Biden is still sticking with his August 31st deadline, and the Taliban say they're not going to allow Afghan citizens to go to the airport in Kabul to leave the country after that day. This means the U.S. has to step up their number of flights to make sure everyone can get out before the end of the month. And some of those who left the country are a group of Afghan teenage girls who made headlines for their success as a robotics team. The girls have patented some groundbreaking inventions like a landmine detector and a low-cost ventilator made from car parts. But now the girls are leaving their country to escape the Taliban. They're now trying to decide what the rest of their futures look like from everything they know.
When we came from Afghanistan, it was a monstrous circumstance for us, and we left our family. I'm so sorry.
Take your time.
And it was so hard for us because our family there and our country destroyed.
They feared that women minorities would lose rights and freedoms under the Taliban's rule. And besides COVID, the most important challenge is getting students to schools. Currently, there's a nationwide bus driver shortage. Some counties across the country are having to combine bus routes and put more kids together because of the shortage. Many kids are starting to walk to school instead, and even if many people signed up, it takes weeks to get them trained. With the threats of Delta and the mask mandate in schools, there is another problem waiting. Cybersecurity experts say that cyber attacks are now another threat to schools. They say that there's been a nearly 30% increase in hacks against schools so far this year. Fake emails, identity thefts, and most often ransomware attacks are happening at schools.
What's caught the education sector off guard is that they really didn't think of themselves as targets. But criminals have no honor. They will go after hospitals, and we've seen them go after schools.
In some cases, teachers were locked out of payrolls, grades, and lesson plans for weeks until hackers got the money they wanted. As children are back in schools, the biggest concern for parents is the vaccination rate among teachers and students. This is according to a new poll from the University of Michigan. They say that at least 62% of parents would feel safer if everyone is vaccinated. Others' concerns are repeating school, being around large groups, and getting along with friends. But 4 in 10 parents say their child is excited about this school year. The University of Virginia is making sure their students prove they are vaccinated. According to the school, they have disenrolled more than 200 students that were unvaccinated. Those students were told through email, text, and phone calls. Around 96% of the campus is fully vaccinated, with about 300 given waivers for medical or religious reasons. And as we wait to get our COVID booster shots later this year, Israel has data to share. They started their booster shots at the end of July. Their data shows the vaccine booster is cutting down the number of Delta variant cases. They originally started giving the Pfizer booster to adults over 60, and last week expanded this to those 40 years old and up. In just the past 10 days, the numbers have started decreasing significantly. Today we found out that Rolling Stones drummer Charlie Watts has died. Their publicist made the announcement that he passed away at the age of 80. Earlier this month, the spokesman had said that he was unlikely to be joining the band on their tour this fall and that he needed to rest after a medical procedure. Heads up here and take a picture.
With low 90s all the way through next week.
It seems everything is going up in price in our stores. The latest numbers prove prices are going up for just about everything right now. Mandy Gaither takes a closer look at the numbers and what products are seeing inflation take the biggest toll.
The price hikes keep coming. Prices for everyday goods and services rose in July by 5.4% compared to a year ago, according to the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index.
We had pent-up demand, and we had big disruptions in supply, and they put pressure on prices.
Here's a look at the sticker shock people are experiencing right now. Women's dress is up about 19% in price over the last 12 months. Used car and gas prices up about 42%. Rental cars are up more than 73%. Experts say the pent-up demand for travel kept inflation hot.
It is not the 70s and the 80s, but it is 3 to 4% inflation that will last for much longer than most people expect.
Americans are also paying more at grocery stores. Apples and milk up 6% over the past year. Fresh fish up more than 8%. Meat up nearly 11%. One food distributor says the price hikes are concerning.
I've been doing this for 35 years. As far as I'm concerned, I'm scared to the point of are they going to stop buying the product?
It's still cheaper to head to the grocery store and enjoy a home-cooked meal. The price of food in restaurants or takeout saw a 4.6% increase compared to this time last year.
Well, we have to eat. So what can I say? A lot of times I have to compromise.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Mandy Gaither.
So much going up right now. The price of restaurant food or for takeout rose by 0.8% in July, the largest monthly increase since February of 1981. Coming up, some of us had to grow up, some before we started liking vegetables, but one kid is showing off his love of healthy eating to the world at a young age. His story next.
Well, the state attorney general's lawsuit against the city of Columbia's mask mandate in schools, and one Richland County School District asking for a pause on this temporary law on masking.
Oral arguments on that school district's request will be held by the state Supreme Court coming up August 31st.
While that debate rages on, 5 teachers and staffers in the school systems across Georgia and South Carolina have died in the last week. In South Georgia, a couple of teachers in Valdosta dying in the same week. Neither were vaccinated. Bryant was going to retire this year after 29 years of teaching. Rashada Kemmons was a mother to 6 children. Her husband says so many people loved her and she loved them to the end.
One of the last things that she asked me was, where are my kids? So she went above and beyond when it came to her kids at her school. She treated those kids at her school and her class like they were her own. There was nothing she wouldn't do for her children.
Unfortunately, a similar story in South Carolina. 3 staff members have died in Dorchester County.
That's just outside of Charleston. Nick Neville spoke to teachers about just how difficult all of this has been.
It was a very sad weekend, a very difficult weekend. People who get into education are typically here because they really love children. They really want to work with children.
The Dorchester District 2 community is mourning tonight, following the death of 3 of its staff members to COVID. SC for Ed said Claire Baisley, who had just accepted the assistant principal job at Span Elementary, died this weekend. Beth Collins of Somerville High and Carla White also passed this week. Walker says she's spoken with teachers across the state who feel like they weren't able to decompress this summer like they have in years past. She says it's not as important where these employees contracted COVID, but that families are suffering as a result.
If you've ever been part of a community that has lost a student or lost a teacher, it's very difficult for that entire community. And we feel strongly that it is disingenuous to talk about the mental health of students when you're not doing everything you can to protect their mental health by creating as safe environment as possible.
Now, that teacher you just heard from talked about a safe environment. She's talking about the ban on mask mandates in schools and only allowing 5% of students to go virtual learning.
She is part of a group that's also pushing back against Governor McMaster's decision on those. But again, just because there isn't a mask mandate doesn't mean your child can't wear one. It is optional.
Just not required.
Right.
Just up I-20, parents of the Lexington-Richland School District in Columbia protesting school policies there. At a school board meeting last night, some parents screamed at school board members, claiming when students have to quarantine, they're not getting an education. Other parents saying they don't feel safe sending their kids to school without a policy requiring a mask.
My wife is going for heart surgery at MUSC next month, and it scares us every single day to send our kids to school, even with a mask on, when there aren't other students wearing a mask.
They're not getting an education. You got that special toolbox. I got a toolbox too. My toolbox, I pull out common sense. And what I see is not common sense. You're a doctor of education, correct? You're not a doctor of medicine, correct?
The district says it will continue to follow health guidelines from officials. It also says it'll consider looking into the possibility of changing their quarantine policy eventually.
Savannah is known as a big spot for everything from conferences to
so that they are able to obtain the justice they deserve.
There is still a frantic search operation underway right now in Tennessee after record-breaking rain and a devastating flood. At least 22 people dead, many more still missing.
Yeah, it's absolutely devastating. We're learning more now about the sudden and tragic losses. Jesse Mitchell is in Waverly, where the water rose very quickly on Saturday.
Rachel Reeves' parents tried to escape as 8 feet of floodwaters inundated their house.
Right as they left the door,
My dad got rushed into the rapids, and my sister and mom, they all got separated.
Rachel's father did not survive. His body was found a mile from the home.
He died a hero. He saved my mom and sister, and I know he's resting peacefully because of that.
Rachel's mother and sister made their way to the top of separate buildings and were rescued by a volunteer flying a private helicopter.
Those debris that they floated on all the way down there.
Cheyenne, Bryant's 15-year-old sister Lily has been missing for 4 days now. She was last seen grabbing onto debris, trying to stay afloat.
I'm hoping that maybe she's with somebody just unconscious and not able to tell them like our number, or she's alive and just somewhere we can't get to her.
More than 20 bodies have already been recovered, including that of Wayne Spears, a longtime friend and ranch foreman for country legend Loretta Lynn. And Taylor Lynn is Lynn's granddaughter.
Being Wayne and being our ranch heartbeat was out there trying to get the dadgum tractor out of harm's way. And that water, just like everything that happened here in town, it just came so fast.
I had the twins in my arms like this.
Danielle Hall and Matthew Rigney experienced the unthinkable when their twins, Ryan and Rayliana, were swept away from their father's arms by the sudden surge of water in their apartment.
Never ever imagined we would be burying two babies that are 7 months old.
The Rigney family had just moved into their home 2 weeks before the flood. So had Rachel Reeves' parents. Tomorrow, services will begin for that beloved ranch foreman Wayne Spears and the two baby twins. Jesse Mitchell, CBS News, Waverly, Tennessee.
It almost looks like they were hit by a hurricane, that they're
Really?
somewhere along the coast, and there was storm surge that did it.
And when you're searching with all this debris and all this people and possessions just swept downstream, it could be weeks before they find everyone, if they ever do.
Devastating, and so many people still holding out hope.
Yeah, prayers for our friends in Tennessee. Let's check in now with
This is News 12 at 6 o'clock.
the upgrade for the 13th Street Bridge project. Still years in the making, but your feedback is already in, and it's impacting those plans.
But first, the halls of this Aiken charter school are empty this week after 72 students tested positive for COVID. Now the school's trying to figure out what options they have moving forward.
So if I had to choose, yes, I would offer that mandate of masks.
2/3 of Horse Creek Academy students are under quarantine right now, and all of them are learning virtually for at least the next 4 days. Could be even longer.
But because they're a public charter school, they use state funds, they're not allowed to mandate masks.
Sloan O'Connor live outside of Horse Creek Academy in Aiken, where administrators are in a board meeting right now. They're talking about the next steps. So, Sloan, you were able to talk to the principal. What'd she say about all this?
Dr. Taylor says they're in a difficult position. The number of positive cases and students quarantining is overwhelming, but there's not much more the school can do because of South Carolina state mandates. South Carolina mandates every school offers 5-day in-person learning, but what happens if there are not enough teachers to staff the school or students behind desks? It took Horse Creek Academy an entire day to get approval to go virtual for 5 days. They would need 20 substitute teachers to be fully operational next Monday.
Last year, in total, we had 49 cases school-wide for the entire year, and we have over 70 in week 3. So that happened.
Horse Creek Academy says they disinfect, keep students in pods, and encourages masks. They use DHEC's definition of exposure, where anyone 3 to 6 feet of a positive person, masked or not, must quarantine unless fully vaccinated. But a lot of students are unable to get the vaccine. They can't require masks, and small classrooms are a challenge.
So if I had to choose, yes, I would offer that mandate of masks.
Third grade teacher Miss Birchmore is still confident in her students.
I would much rather have my students in person than virtual, but I'm not necessarily worried, because once you have the solid connection with your students, you're able to overcome any obstacle that's thrown at you.
So closing the door is never an easy option. It's probably the last thing I would ever want to do.
And in their board meeting right now, they're voting to update these COVID guidelines. There's not much different in them, but they want to make sure the school is as safe as possible come Monday when they reopen their doors.
Okay, some difficult choices to make. Sloan, thanks for sharing that with us. In the next 7 minutes, we're going to be hearing from the governor and the growing list of people asking him to remove that ban on mask mandates. Here's a breakdown of what exposure looks like right now in Columbia County schools where masks are not required. Let's say student A tests positive for COVID and is not wearing a mask. Student B is wearing a mask, but student C is not. Well, because they were 3 feet within each other, only student C has to quarantine. So let's flip the scenario. If student A tests positive but is wearing a mask and is still within 3 feet, neither student B nor C are considered exposed. This is the same policy in Richmond County where students are required to wear masks.
More news later, but let's check in now with the first.
Adam Mitzer on your side.
A lot of strong feelings on that one. We know we haven't heard the end of that lawsuit, Adam. Thank you. Well, you might remember these plans for the 13th Street Bridge. GDOT asked for your thoughts on widening the sidewalk, adding a new sidewalk on the other side, and connecting to our trail system.
Well, your feedback is already in, and it's already impacting these plans. As Celeste Springer tells us, the majority of the feedback on the plans is positive, and it really all comes back around to safety.
The River Club in North Augusta sits quietly tucked away, but right next door, every day, the sound of roughly 20,000 cars hums by.
It's dangerous.
Well, some say hum by, others say zoom by.
It's a bad situation for people that are riding their bikes on the bridge, and the sidewalk's too narrow for a bicycle.
We talked to people who say they're happy to see the bridge widened for pedestrian and bike access. GDOT says the feedback they received online told the same story.
Over 120 officially commented, and if you count conditional support, I may have had some minor concerns about certain items, but it was over 90%.
Almost 96% of people gave either full or conditional support of the plans. And at the end of the day,
it all comes down to life safety and being safe with pedestrians on the bridge.
Some wanted more streetlights, others wanted to do away with the staircase access in North Augusta, and many wanted to ensure the bridge was widened enough for bicyclists and pedestrians.
We think it's a good midway point in trying to please as many people as possible. You're not going to make everybody happy, but those are a few of the things that kind of stood out initially.
And with all those standout comments, GDOT is back to the drawing board to finalize plans.
That is Celeste Springer reporting there, and GDOT says it'll be about 6 months to a year before everything is finalized. We'll keep you updated on that very important project on the state line. Right now, breaking news out of Columbia County. Schools will require a mask starting Thursday. They will require a mask in Columbia County schools. Live pictures from the school board meeting going on as we speak. Our crew was there. The new superintendent made that announcement.
The superintendent says 296 students have tested positive for COVID. That is just this week alone. 1,000 are in quarantine. So again, a pretty bold, sure to be contentious decision from Columbia County saying masks will be required now in the county in all schools starting on Thursday. We'll have much more on this tonight at 11 o'clock. Though they are small in size, they are a big eyesore when you see them on the ground. Coming